Mr. Hung, thank you very much for your testimony and for your leadership. Let me just begin with a few questions. Mr. Hai, you made a very powerful opening, and all of your statements were very powerful. But you noted that your fellow prisoners entrusted you to relay their cries for help to the international community, and you have done that, as you all have, to help the international community understand that the persecution of prisoners of conscience in Vietnam is systemic, that it is ongoing, it's pervasive, and it is part of the system. It's not an aberration. And also to lay bare the deceit of the Vietnam authorities when they commit to revise Vietnamese laws in order to participate in international trade agreements but do not implement such laws. I would take it a step further and say even the laws they write, as Dr. Tong pointed out, the new religious law is likely to compound and make worse the already existing Decree 92, which is already a terrible onerous burden on people of faith. So that deceit that you speak about, and all of you might want to speak to this, we've been here before. We've seen this movie. It almost is like deja vu from 15 years ago in 2000, and again a half a dozen years later when the WTO was the issue. All of this seeming movement towards easing, only to be followed by a snapback. And matter of fact, Pastor Hung, you pointed out that a religious leader was informed by authorities that when TPP is approved, his pagoda would be torn down. When are we going to learn? Why won't the administration hear? One of the leaders in the administration wrote an op-ed recently saying how this good thing is happening and this prisoner is being released. We saw that before, only to see, again, a very serious repressive move by the government of Vietnam against its own people. This would be the third time. First time, shame on you. Second time, shame on me. Third time, are we being foolish? Are we naive? And yet the same cynical notion is seemingly having an impact positively at the White House and among members of Congress. So let me just ask you if you could speak to that issue, starting with Pastor Hung, about the pagoda, and elaborate on that. And let me, while you're translating, I remember I made a trip to Vietnam, several, but one of them I met with a large number of pastors from the Buddhist church. I met with the Venerable Taekwondo, like my friend Mr. Lowenthal, like many of my colleagues, Father Lee, Father Loy, so many others, a lot of Protestant pastors. Many of them were rounded up after the trade benefit was provided, and even people who had signed Block 8406 found themselves targeted by the Vietnamese repressive government. So if you could, how naive are we as a government here in the United States, thinking that somehow things will improve? And I'll just add one last thing. Having read the key chapters of the TPP, which is under lock and key right now, we can't even discuss it openly. I am absolutely not persuaded that human rights would be advanced. Just the opposite. There is no enforcement, even of ILO standards, which has some nice language about the international labor laws. No enforcement mechanism. So if you could all address that, then I'll yield to my friend Mr. Lowenthal, or any questions he might have.
Kính thưa quý vị, tôi cũng xin kể lại để quý vị nghe về câu chuyện chùa Liên Trì. Thì chùa Liên Trì từ nhiều năm nay làm cái nơi đem cái tình yêu thương và phát quà cho các cái bệnh nhi ung bướu, những cái gia đình khốn khó, rồi là cái nơi mà tá túc cho dân oan đi khiếu kiện, và cũng là cái nơi phát quà cho anh em thương phế binh Việt Nam Cộng Hòa.
Linji Buddhist Temple for many years has been a place for people who have been disadvantaged, who have suffered injustices, and has been a place to help the handicapped, including the wounded veterans of the former Republic of Vietnam.
Thì qua những cái việc làm từ thiện của chùa Liên Trì như vậy, cho nên là nhà cầm quyền Việt Nam người ta cũng rất là khó chịu, và người ta đã tìm cách để giải tỏa san bằng chùa Liên Trì.
Because of these humanitarian efforts by the Linji Pagoda, the Vietnamese authorities have really focused on targeting to shut down this Buddhist temple.
Ở trong tháng 8 năm 2014 vừa qua, người ta cũng ra một cái thông báo là tháng 9 người ta sẽ xử lý hành chính chùa Liên Trì, có nghĩa là người ta cưỡng chế chùa Liên Trì, và Hội đồng Liên tôn chúng tôi cũng đã ra một cái thông cáo và vận động các tổ chức xã hội cũng như được nhiều ngàn người ký tên, thì người ta chưa thực hiện giải tỏa.
So last August, the authorities came out with an announcement that they would take administrative measures against the pagoda in September. So the Interfaith Council, which I'm a member of, we organized a petition and got thousands of signatures to oppose that. And fortunately, the government backed off on those plans.
Mới đây dòng Chúa Cứu Thế tại 38 Kỳ Đồng Sài Gòn không được cho tổ chức làm công tác từ thiện nữa, lại chuyển trở lại về chùa Liên Trì để làm từ thiện, thì công an người ta lại tiếp tục người ta muốn là cưỡng chiếm chùa Liên Trì.
And recently, the Vietnamese Redemptorists were prevented from organizing their own activities at the Kỳ Đồng Church in Saigon, and because of that, the Redemptorists partnered with the Buddhist temple at Linh Chi, and because of that, the authorities are further focusing on the Linh Chi pagoda.
Trước khi tôi qua đây ấy, thì trong một phiên họp của Hội đồng Liên tôn Việt Nam, thầy Thích Không Tánh có thông báo rằng là công an thông báo cho các Phật tử ở xung quanh đó đem hết sự hài cốt và các cái hình đang thờ trong chùa về, vì sau khi Việt Nam vào được TPP tháng 8 thì họ sẽ cưỡng chế san bằng chùa Liên Trì.
And so before I came to the U.S., Venerable Thích Công Tánh, the abbot of Linh Chi Pagoda, said that fellow Buddhists of that pagoda have heard from government officials to remove all their artifacts from the temple, including cremated remains of the relatives, because the temple would be closed down after TPP.
Và hiện nay họ đang hối thúc chùa Liên Trì phải nhận cái giá bồi thường mà do họ áp đặt để họ thu hồi đất và để họ lấy cái mặt bằng đó.
And so now the authorities are pressuring the Linh Chi temple to basically take a settlement, a very reduced sale of the temple of the land, so then the government can take over the land.
Hòa thượng Thích Không Tánh cũng đã một cái thư phản đối không chấp nhận cái chuyện áp đặt đền bù đó, và cũng không, và Hội đồng Liên tôn cũng đã có một cái kháng thư đó, nhưng tới nay nhà cầm quyền Việt Nam chưa có trả lời.
So the Venerable Thích Công Tánh has refused that cash settlement, and as well as the Vietnam Interfaith Council has refused that, and so now we're waiting for the response from the Vietnamese authorities.
Xin cảm ơn.
Thank you.
Yes, the Vietnamese government now has sent some signals to our government that it may be ready to make concessions on labor rights as part of the TPP. However, I don't think there's any benchmark or mechanism to enforce that commitment, to monitor the compliance, or to sanction in case there's non-compliance. We have seen a precedent before, back in 2006, when the Vietnamese government promised to respect the right to freedom of religion in order to be taken off the CPC designation. So we hurriedly took Vietnam off that list, and immediately there was a brutal, bloody crackdown against religions. And we have documented through pictures, actually, the violence against people of faith, including religious leaders. These are very graphic, and I would like to point out a few pictures only. This is the picture of Pastor Nguyễn Công Chính, who is now serving long-term sentence in prison right now. Picture of Father Lee, a Buddhist monk here. Reverend Thích Thái Thuận, he was beaten and had to be hospitalized. Father Ngô Thế Bình, a Catholic priest, also beaten up, and he had to be hospitalized. This person was beaten to death, a Khmer Krom Christian, Protestant. Miss Ken in Dong Chiêm, a female Catholic, so on and so forth, until this day. There still continued to be violence against people of faith. So we have no mechanism from our own government. When we accepted the promise and the commitments by the Vietnamese government that they would improve, if they fail to do so, we have no mechanism. We have no benchmarks to measure that. There's no deliverables, as Mr. Chairman just mentioned. So I'm just afraid that we are back in the same situation again with the Vietnamese government's promise to to respect the workers' rights to form or join independent and free labor unions. So I'm very concerned about that.
On that point, I did ask an administration witness at a previous hearing, what happens when labor rights activists and other human rights activists and religious freedom prisoners, but especially since labor rights are at least signaled in the TPP, included in it, when they're beaten, when they're incarcerated and given long jail sentences and their efforts at organizing are completely thwarted. What does that trigger? They said, we'll get back to you. They still haven't gotten back to you. I've now read the secret proposed treaty called the TPP, or executive agreement, and I didn't see any enforcement. Mr. Lowenthal.
Thank